Well, I'm thinking of a story. Actually, the sort of freshest one in my mind is from this past Friday. Um, but I think it's a good one because it kind of tells the whole story about California white sharks that are, central to this area, to the Monterey Bay area. So on Friday, we went out to the Farallon Islands um, to for tagging and doing our photo ID work. Um, the Farallon Islands, Año Nuevo Island, Point Reyes, this whole region of Central California is a spot where white sharks come and aggregate, and they're looking for their prey. And October and November is the peak time. Now we're in the middle of October, right in the thick of the white shark season. Sharks are coming here essentially to eat juvenile elephant seals that are hauling up at this time of year. And so we were out at the Farallon Islands, and we're photographing the sharks, and we're looking to get a profile shot of their dorsal fin, which is basically their fingerprint. And so, right 15 minutes in, and we had a shark up. We use a decoy that's a silhouette that looks like a seal, float that out on the water behind us, and we're anchored at this point at the Farallons. And so we had a shark right up at 15 minutes in, and got some video, and that was great. We didn't recognize that shark. And then about mid-morning, we were just about to pull the anchor and go try a different spot. And the decoy was already reeled in and in the boat, and we look down and suddenly see there's a quite a large shark, around 16 and a half feet long, swimming around the boat, and yeah, lots of scars, look like a real old timer. And so we started looking closely, and finally the shark surfaces, and we can see the fin, and it's a shark that we've called Elvis. We recognize it. At the tip of its fin, it's got a little flip, sort of a rounded part, kind of like the hairstyle of the legendary singer. So his name is Elvis, and Elvis is a real special shark because Elvis was first photographed at the Farallon Islands in 1989. And so this Friday we have a new record. The longest span between when a shark was first ID'd and when we subsequently have seen it most recently. So it's 29 years. The previous record was 27 years, which is also impressive, and there's one at 26 years. So it's incredible. So my colleague Scott Anderson photographed the shark in 1989 when he was on the island actually studying birds, before he sort of shifted his lens from the birds over to the ocean and started studying the sharks, and came over to this side and really started this photo ID program. So a lot of the photos we're looking at today and the IDs, we're going back to try and match to some of these historical photos. So 29 years, and in that time I've seen Elvis. Last time I saw him was 2 years ago, in 2016, and then I think 2015, 2014, and then maybe 2013 and 2011. 2006, I remember seeing him. So, not every year, but sporadically we see him out there, and it's just really exciting. So what it tells us, it really illustrates the story about white sharks in this area. These sharks come back here every single year. The males are here, and females every other year, or sometimes they take a break. Basically throughout their whole adult life. And where they go between seal hunting seasons is offshore to the White Shark Cafe, over to Hawaii, which takes about a month to swim out there. But just like clockwork, they come back every year, and it's just amazing to see the same individuals come to the exact same spot. I mean, we could have been anchored there 10, 15 years ago at this exact same spot and seen Elvis. And if we didn't have our satellite tagging program, you would think that these sharks never left that exact same tiny little area. But when we started putting on the electronic tags, we just saw the tracks head off into the ocean. In fact, they spend more time offshore in the open ocean than they do at the coast, but they come back every time. And the reason why this is so significant is that these sharks are able to traverse the ocean. They could clearly, they swim to Hawaii regularly. They can clearly just keep on going to the other side. There are white sharks over on the other side, but they come back, and they're kind of like salmon. Salmon go and give birth where they were born, and that's why they have these genetically distinct stocks of salmon. Some of them are distinct within a particular fork of the same river. Well, we have our white sharks here in California and northern Baja and in this what we call the northeastern Pacific. They are genetically distinct from all other white sharks in the world, and we think the reason is because of this site fidelity, philopatry, this love of a place, or the tendency to go give birth where you were born. So Elvis is a male, obviously, but the females are doing the same thing, and the females will come and give birth in Southern California and northern Baja. So pretty cool. One of the really cool, interesting new things in Monterey Bay with regards to our white sharks is that since about 2014 we've started to see a lot of small sharks in Central California that we've never really seen before. And in particular in the northern part of Monterey Bay off of Aptos, New Brighton Beach. And we first started seeing this around 2014. And we've done some work looking at the types of temperatures that these smaller sharks prefer, because white sharks are endotherms, and they have to maintain a warm body core temperature. Usually when they're born, they're confined to warmer waters, and in California that means south of Point Conception, so in the Southern California Bight. However, in 2014 we had this warm blob, a body of warm water that really warmed up the coastal waters of Central California. In 2015 we had El Nino that extended to 2016, and so there was 3 or 4 years in a row of exceptionally warm water in Central California. And so when we plotted where we would expect to see the juvenile white sharks and newborn white sharks according to the water temperature, suddenly the area where that should be accessible to them was above Point Conception into Central California and even up to Monterey Bay. And so theoretically, looking at the temperatures, we could predict that they should be in Monterey Bay, and that coincided with the observations that indeed we're starting to see them up here. And even this year, they're back again. So we're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. We think that it's clearly a temperature-related phenomena to see them up here. And we think that this might be kind of the new normal, certainly 20 to 50 years from now, as ocean temperatures warm. This will happen more frequently, is what's predicted, and it may, in fact, eventually be just warm enough for these juvenile white sharks to be up here. Now, the interesting thing is, it's only warm here part of the year. In the spring, we get the winds, and it steers up the water. We get the upwelling. We get the cold, deep water come up to the surface, and so the entire coast starts to get a lot chillier. But there's this really interesting pattern that happens because the northern part of the bay is hooked over, and it's south-facing, and it gets a lot of sunlight, and the current that's running longshore along the California coast kind of has a little eddy into the northern part of the bay. As the water temperature cools off along Central California in the spring, there's always this warm pocket of water inside the bay right off of Aptos. And we've looked now to see, when this warm pocket is prominent, and what the temperature difference is. And I've been seeing this spring that the temperature difference between that warm pocket and the outer waters of, say, Año Nuevo, there can be a 5 to 10 degree difference. And that's a huge amount for a small-bodied animal that has to stay warm. And so, we start, people have been seeing a lot of sharks off of Aptos, and so wondering why there's so many in that one particular area. And we think that what happens is, we get these abnormal warm years, and the water generally in Central California is fairly warm, so those little sharks can come up here, or maybe they're even born here because the mother recognizes it's a warm enough area. Then the wind blows, everything cools off, and everything starts cooling except for that one little warm spot. And we think that this has an effect of corralling all the little sharks into that area. And that's the hypothesis that we're working with right now. And so we've been out there this spring putting on tags that measure the temperature, that have video cameras that record their behavior and record the types of things that they're seeing. And the interesting thing is that these little white sharks, when we see them in Aptos, they're swimming at the surface. They're kind of basking in the sun. It's the warmest spot, and we can tell from our tags, it tells us this is the warmest time of the day and this is the warmest place to be that they've found. And that's when they linger around. Typically, when we see white sharks in a hunting mode or a foraging mode, they're typically swimming deep, and they're looking, they're not looking to be detected. So they're trying to be stealthy and use the element of surprise to come up on a seal or sea lion or something like that. So we don't think that the surface milling is a predation behavior. We think it's a thermoregulatory behavior. So they're indeed, that sort of supports this idea that they're trying to stay warm. And so the way to do that is to be in the warmest spot. Not only that, is to be right at the surface, getting some solar radiation and lingering in that little warm layer of water there. That that spot doesn't get much wind either. It can be windy outside, and when you duck into that little cove, it's just so calm and warm. If you drive from there down to Monterey, you can really feel the difference in the air, as you know. So that's been an interesting new development, and it's it's a changing place, and we've seen since 2014 a lot of new species up in this area. Different birds, snails, pelagic crabs, all of this new stuff that's associated with warmer water, and we think that the smaller juvenile white sharks is one more piece of that puzzle.